All right, Chris, let's dive into tonight's topic, shall we?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Recruiting versus the transfer portal, Chris. There has been a lot of, shall we say, debate in Buckeye Nation as to is Ryan Day and is the football program doing enough when it comes to recruiting using NIL and, of course, the transfer portal? Now, Ryan Day has brought on more people this offseason in the transfer portal than he has in previous off seasons. So he is using the transfer portal a little bit more, but does that mean we have more holes to fill? Possibly. Has it been a lack of development? Possibly. Is it because we're losing people to the portal? You know, the portal does giveth and the portal does taketh away. So, Chris, I want to hear from you first when it comes to recruiting and the transfer portal. What do you think Ryan Day's philosophy is, and what would be your philosophy if you were Ryan Day when you look at those two things and compare them?
Well, I'll tell you, let me touch on the portal first. I actually like what Ryan Day has done a lot in the portal. I think that obviously we got those NIL dollars we could throw around a little bit more. I think that Ryan Day is one of the things, for better or worse, about Ryan Day and our program at Ohio State is I think they try to keep it above board. I think that they aren't going out and doing what schools like Texas A&M, schools like I know some of the Florida schools have done it, where they're just outright saying, "Hey, we are going to pay you." They're trying to stick to the letter of the law, I think. Um, and what he is doing with that, I really like what he's doing with the portal. As far as if you look back at what he's done with the portal, in 19 he brought in Justin Fields and Jonah Jackson. If you look at 2020, we had Trace Sermon come in. Uh, 21 was Noah Ruggles. 22, of course, we had Tanner McAllister, Parker Lewis, and Chip Trianimalt came in. And this year, we've already seen the cornerback, and I'm going to butcher this name, Eric. I know I'm going to. Davison Igbenison. I'm going
Sure.
to try that. He was the top cornerback available out there in the portal that was still available when we got to him. We brought in Jihad Carter, uh, John Fairman, the long snapper, Victor Cutler, the offensive tackle, and Tristan Gebbia, the quarterback. What I think he does very well is I think that he actually does a good job of addressing needs. And I think he doesn't just bring people in to bring people in from the portal. You look at guys like Greg Schiano, like Mel Tucker. These are guys who are building teams in many times out of the portal. He's not doing that. He's addressing his immediate needs in the portal. He's bringing in guys that make sense, and I think guys that can contribute and be better and make the program better. As far as recruiting goes, I mean, obviously, we've had a lot of recruiting success under Ryan Day as far as our national ranking with the classes. You look at our wide receiver room, specifically. You look at our quarterbacks. Um, but one thing that I thought he'd been okay about and then started getting a little better about was recruiting Ohio. I mean, if you look back at the 2023 recruiting class that's going to be coming in, he nailed, I think, 8 of the top 9 recruits out of the state of Ohio for the 2023 class. But you go to that 2024 class, that concerns me a little bit because, yeah, we've nailed like 5 of the top 9, but we nailed number 1. And I think it's like number 5 or 6 is our next recruit. That middle section, that 2 through 5, we've got some of these guys go to that team up north. I think Notre Dame's got their hands on some. So this is an area I really would like to see addressed more is the recruiting of the state of Ohio and really just locking these guys down. We should be getting 7 out of the top 10 out of Ohio every season without fail. That is the one thing that I'd like to see done a little bit better. But as far as recruiting goes, I don't have a huge problem with it because he's constantly getting these top 5, top 6 classes since he's been in charge. You know, a lot of that has to do with the great recruiting from the assistant coaches as well. We've got great recruiters and assistants. I think it's only going to get better with guys like James Laurinaitis coming on now too. But if there is one weakness I have in Ryan Day's recruiting and transfer portal philosophy, it's that we're not getting enough from Ohio. And possibly, as I said, maybe we need to loosen the reins a little. And this is going to spark some debate, I'm sure. But loosen the reins a little. The other schools are all doing it. Maybe it's time for us to just come out and say, listen, we're going to pay you to play. So that's kind of my take on
that. Let me read Don Hoffer's comment here. I think it's because we are losing people, talking about bringing people in from the portal. But bringing in people who have a year of college development benefits us. In my opinion, I think Ohio State looks for the right fit for the good of the program. I agree,
I
Don.
agree.
Pantone met with the media. It was either a week ago or 2 weeks ago, one of the two. And he basically talked about how NIL was being used basically for the current roster more so than the recruits coming in. Now, there were a handful of recruits that came to Ohio State that signed NIL deals as soon as they were on campus. Those NIL deals were not insignificant, but they were not what was being promised at, say, like Florida, Miami,
A&M.
Yeah, A&M, gosh. But the thing is what Pantone was saying to these guys is, hey, look, you come here, you perform, you develop, you're going to get paid well. I don't know what the number was that CJ Stroud brought in this past season or Jackson Smith and the Jigba, but it was not insignificant at all. They had some very nice NIL deals, and I would not be surprised, Chris.
CJ was 7 figures. I guarantee that.
I want to say CJ Stroud was between $1 million or $2 million this year is the number
and
that
he
was
earned
floated around. So that's not insignificant. Now, is that a multi-million-dollar deal just walking on campus? No, he had to earn that, like you said. So it was significant enough that CJ hesitated before making the announcement that he was going to enter his name into the NFL draft.
I still think if they would have came through with a $13 or $14 million deal, he would be the starting quarterback next year. I truly believe that.
I don't think $13 or $14 million to any one player in college
is it justified? No.
No.
It's not justified, but I'm telling you that would have done it.
Possibly.
It would have been more than he would have made on his first 2 years of his rookie contract.
But the faster he gets to the NFL, Chris,
the
faster he gets to that second deal. He's banking on himself here a little bit. But
yeah.
What I'm getting at is this. You have to have a very good give and take when it comes to recruiting versus the transfer portal. Let's take a look at Michigan State. Mel Tucker came in, and in 2021, that entire roster was basically transfer portal U. And they did really well. They did really, really well in 2021.
But they also all graduated. What happened?
They all graduated. He went back to the well in 2022, and it was a swing and a miss in 2022. So like I always say, the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. So you have to strike a very good level there. Just be very, very cognizant of the fact that you still need to build a very good recruiting class. Now, I would say the difficulty for these college coaches right now that Urban Meyer didn't have to deal with, that Nick Saban is struggling to deal with right now.
And he's verbalized as much.
Is the re-recruiting of your roster.
Right.
There should not be any poaching taking place. And that is exactly what is taking place. I mean, I think Emeka Egbuka let the cat out of the bag down in the Peach Bowl that there's been some people who reached out to him. There was a lot of rumors that USC was hot on the trail.
Good for him for blowing the whistle on that too. Good for him for doing that.
Marvin Harrison, there was a lot of rumors that USC was after him to go out there, that they were going to offer him a big-time multi-million-dollar deal through the NIL to go out there. So that shouldn't be happening. And again, here's the thing though. No one's going to stop it because the NCAA has zero teeth at this point. They have no backbone. Look at what they did to Kansas basketball. Kansas basketball right now should be under the death penalty.
Yes.
Nothing. North Carolina was making fictitious classes for guys. Nothing. They went in and basically both Kansas and North Carolina said, we don't care about what you think. We're still going to go play basketball and do what we want. And you're seeing that in Ann Arbor right now with Jim Harbaugh. NCAA came in. They said, hey, you're not being truthful to us. You're not being forthcoming. And Jim Harbaugh's going, why do I care? You guys don't have any power and you're not doing anything about these rules that are happening right now. And I don't want to give Jim Harbaugh credit for anything.
But he's not wrong.
He is not wrong. And if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'm doing the exact same thing. So here's my issue right now, and the reason why I'm a little bit concerned. You brought it up, Chris. The 2024 recruiting class in the state of Ohio is loaded.
Yeah.
This is the best class we have had in the state of Ohio of high school athletes, and dare I say more than a decade or more. And right now, Ryan Day is struggling to land these guys, and I think NIL has a lot to do with that. You've got the top tight end in the state of Ohio already committed to LSU. You have 2 of the top 15 in the class of Ohio already committed to that team up north, one of which is an offensive tackle. You have 2 more in that top 15 who have crystal balls in and are leans to Michigan already. Now, we do have some crystal balls in for these guys, but Alabama's sniffing around. Tennessee is on a lot of these guys, and you know Tennessee's been offering a lot of money.
They're throwing the money around. Yeah, they're almost as bad as A&M.
So we have got to figure out how this collective that they're talking about can generate enough NIL to this class of local youngsters to want to keep them home. It says Facebook user. I don't know who exactly is this name. There's no name on it. It just says Facebook user. NIL equals the death of college sports. I don't necessarily disagree.
Yeah, we've been saying that for a year, Eric.
Yeah, there's got to be guardrails up, okay? If we don't put guardrails up, there's going to be a lot of people who drive their careers off a cliff.
Yes.
And so we've got to put some guardrails up. And the only way that's going to happen is these conferences come together and collectively say, all right, the NCAA is a joke. We need a commissioner.
The problem is I just don't see that happening, Eric, because the conferences can't get along. You know, and you look at the Big Ten. I mean, we had a coalition of conferences for about a week before the Big Ten went out and knocked off half the guys that are supposed to be in the coalition with them. You know, starting to take apart the Pac-10. You know, the SEC. Nobody wants to be in bed with the SEC. Nobody likes them down there, outside of the SEC. It's a mess. I think it's going to end up breaking down into a couple of super conferences. Is what's going to end up happening.
I don't disagree with you, Chris. And I at the end of the day, I'm wondering if it's going to be 3, if it's going to be or 4. But if you're going to have the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC, and possibly a Big 12, what's left of the Pac-12 merger.
And then maybe a group of 5, the what's previously, or in everybody else.
It's a possibility. Let's do this. Here, let me read one more comment, and then we're going to put percentages on these, Chris. I'm very ignorant to where the NIL money comes from. And as you say, with no regulations, it is Nick Satan's wild, wild west.
But it's not his anymore. That's the problem. It's passed him by. That's how crazy it's gotten.
So where's the money come from? These collectives, it's basically boosters. So you're rich guys who want to see a championship. The rich get richer. In other words, and the problem that Ohio State has had is they've been taking this money from these boosters to build these stadiums and these facilities on campus. We have some of the nicest facilities for the Olympic sports in the entire country, and dare I say, the nicest. Our track field, Jesse Owens Stadium, is amazing. They have a brand new tennis facility.
Did they just build a new lacrosse facility as well?
A brand new lacrosse field has opened up. And they're actually playing their inaugural season in it right now. Just started. We have the Cavelli Center, which is the wrestling and the gymnastics. I would not be shocked if we don't see a brand new, smaller arena for hockey very soon. So there's a lot going on over there on campus where the money from the boosters has been funneled into that for the athletic department, where some of these other programs, they're taking that booster money and they're literally just giving it to the athletes to get them to come to their school.
But you look back historically, before all this NIL was allowed, that's where you put the money, because it was the facilities, it was the educational facilities and what was available on campus. That's what drew these kids in. That's just not that way anymore.
No. And Mark Pantoni talked about that. He said if a recruit comes to our campus and his number one concern is NIL, we don't want him. I don't know that that's going to be, if that's going to sustain this program long term, if you keep that idea and theory. So let's do this real quick. And give a percentage of it when it comes to recruiting versus the transfer portal. When it comes to Ryan Day's emphasis of this, how much percentage should he be putting on recruiting versus how much should be put on the transfer portal when it comes to player acquisition for this season?
For this season, I would say we should be looking 70% recruiting, 30% transfer portal. Because I think as you look, the next couple of seasons, we are okay at most positions. Where I'd like to see him attack maybe the transfer portal would be in maybe getting a little more experience to help along the offensive line. Aside from that, I feel pretty good. So I'm going to say a 70-30 type thing, maybe. As we look at the recruiting versus the transfer portal. I think we've got to get stronger at the recruiting end of it. And if that means passing around a little, a few NIL dollars, that's what we need to do. But, the thing is, things are changing now, too, where you're going to see a shift to, I think, more of a 60-40, 50-50 type thing with most teams with that in the future. Because what's happened is these top recruits are going to these schools. They're not getting the deals they were promised. They're jumping in the transfer portal. Well, now all of a sudden you got a guy who was a 5-star a year ago who's ticked off because, Florida, for instance, didn't come through on his deal. And now, hey, I'm back in the transfer portal. It was the kid, the Florida State quarterback, or Florida quarterback, right?
Yeah, promised him $13 million. First paycheck came up, they gave him $0.
And now
he said bye-bye.
Arizona State without an NIL deal. He's got no NIL dollars in Arizona State. So, I think we're going to see more of a balanced emphasis because of what NIL is doing to the sport as we move forward. Right now, I'm going to say 70-30. I would say within the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see that more 60-40, 50-50 type thing.
Larry says, so now a recruit has to consider a path to the field on Saturdays and or a paycheck. Hard to balance both.
He's right.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Larry.